All right, so racism is one theme. What's another theme that Harper Lee seems to be developing in To Kill a Mockingbird?
I think maybe the spirit of do what you think is right, but not regardless of what others think of you.
Oh, okay. So how about we put that in terms of the individual versus the group?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think she has a lot to say about that. Okay. Now, what's another theme that she develops in the book? Now, what I mean by that is think about the attitudes, the traditional attitudes expressed toward women in the book. Does the author, Harper Lee, through the character of Scout, seem to agree with those traditional attitudes toward women, or does she seem to challenge and reject those traditional attitudes?
Challenge and reject.
Yeah, she challenges and rejects those traditional attitudes toward women. So we might call that, feminism, right? Okay, another way to think about this conflict between the group and the individual is you might think of it in terms of what does Harper Lee, on some level, think ultimately motivates people in their decision making? Does she think that people are sort of prompted to make decisions by their reason or by passions and irrational fears? Which seem to be stronger in prompting people, especially groups, not individuals, but groups? What prompts groups to take action? Their reason or fears and emotions?
Passion, emotions.
Passion, right? So another conflict that happens in the book that's a theme throughout is this passion and reason, right? Which is stronger? Which prompts groups to take action? Okay. Along with this, this sort of division between passion and reason, we also have this sort of intellect and violence, right? And this is sort of played out by the two major families described in the book, and that's the Finches and the Yules. Now, Atticus, what's his profession? How does he make a living?
Lawyer.
He's a lawyer. Now, what do lawyers use to resolve conflict? Do they use their fists or do they use their intelligence? Right. Now, the Yules, on the other hand, are they as educated as the Finches? No. So, what does, say, Burris Yule or Robert E. Lee Yule use to sort of resolve conflict? Remember Burris Yule's conflict with Miss Caroline on the first day of class, right? Is it one where he uses his intelligence to resolve the conflict that he has with the teacher?
No.
What does he use to resolve his conflict with the teacher? Doesn't he threaten her? Yeah, he threatens her with an act of violence, right? You can't make me do this. You just give it a try and see what's going to happen, right? And that sort of attitude is confirmed by Robert E. Lee Yule. Have you guys watched the movie or read the end of the book? Right? What does Robert E. Lee Yule is, of course, the father of the Yule family. And how does he try to get revenge on Atticus? How does he try to get revenge on Atticus? Does he confront Atticus directly?
No.
Does he try to use his intelligence?
No.
No. What does he use? Who does he attack?
Children.
He attacks the children, right? Does he argue with the children, or does he physically attack the children? Right. So again, it's this sort of subset of intelligence or violence, right? How do you resolve conflict? Okay, so now, like I said, the theme, the sort of surface theme, is racism. And then you have this sort of conflicts between the individual and the group. So that, are individuals more reasonable in the way that they come to decisions? Are groups more sort of driven by their passions and irrational fears when they make decisions? Are the finches more likely to use their intelligence when resolving conflict? Are the yules more likely to use violence when it comes to resolving conflict? And how does this relate to, of course, education? Education is also a very important theme in To Kill a Mockingbird, right? Okay, so do we have any questions about these themes so far? Okay, now so let's look in a general way again about how some of these themes are developed. And the way that we first want to think about this is we want to think about it in terms of the differences between the yules and the finches. Okay, so Atticus is the head of the finch household. Again, how does Atticus make a living? He's a lawyer, right? So, now, what do we know about Atticus's brother, John, or what the children called Uncle Jack?
Jim.
No. Jim is the son. But remember, Atticus has a brother, a younger brother. His name is John, but the children call him Uncle Jack. What is Uncle Jack's profession? He's a doctor, right? Uncle Jack is a doctor, right? So Atticus is a lawyer. Uncle Jack, or Brother John, he's a doctor. And then there are the two children. There's Jim, and then there's Scout. Now, what do we know about Scout just from the first day of the first grade? What can she already do that the other children who've repeated the first grade a couple of times can't do? What can Scout already do that the other students can't do even though they've repeated the first grade? She can read and write. Now, what does Atticus do with Scout every night? That's right. That's right. They read together, right? Mm-hmm. Now, let's and then another member of the Finch household, of course, is Calpurnia, right? Okay. So, one thing that we can say about the Finches, they're very educated, right? Now, would you say they're wealthy or they're poor? Where do they fit in terms of their economics?
In the middle.
Yeah, well, they would be middle class, right? At least that's what Atticus says, right? So they're definitely not poor. Okay? Again, we've gone over this. How does Atticus resolve conflict as his profession? He uses his intelligence. And then how does he encourage Scout to solve problems at school? By beating up other boys, which he's good at? Or does Atticus prefer that she use her intelligence? That's right. So he's consistent, right? His profession is one where he uses intelligence to solve problems, and he encourages his daughter to do the same, right? Now we want to contrast that with the Finches, right? So, of course, the head of the household is Reverdy, Lee, Yule, and then we meet Burris, of course, at the beginning, and then we meet Mayella. Okay, since Burris is the first one that we meet in the novel, we want to sort of focus on Burris because I think he sort of he describes a pattern that sort of fits the family as a whole. So what is that pattern? Well, is Burris very educated? What do we know about Burris from his interaction with Miss Caroline? Can he read? Can he write?
No.
No, he's illiterate, right? His English grammar is very bad, right? So, moreover, he only comes to the first day of school every year, and that's it, right? So he's poorly educated. Now, besides being poorly educated, are the Yules wealthy or are they poor?
Poor.
They're very poor, right? Now, how do the Yules, and again, think about Burris's interaction with Miss Caroline, right? How do the Yules resolve conflict? Do they use their intelligence?
Right.
No, they threaten with physical violence, right? Okay, now that we have these two lists that sort of define these two different families in general terms, we want to think, well, how does this relate to one of the first major themes that we encounter in the book, that of racism, right? In other words, the sort of most apparent theme that Harper Lee kind of wants all the readers to get and to understand. How do these sets of characteristics relate to racism? Well, think about this. If you belong to the Finch family, you're well educated, you have economic resources, and you resolve conflict through intelligence, not violence. So, are you more likely or less likely to be racist? Are you more likely to be racist? Less likely to be racist. That's right. Now, how is this demonstrated that these characteristics taken together create people who are less likely to be racist? How is this fact demonstrated? Well, remember, Calpurnia. What color is Calpurnia? Is she white? No, she's not white, right? She's black. But now, do the Finches treat Calpurnia different? Do they discriminate against Calpurnia because she's black? No. In fact, they treat Calpurnia as a member of the family, right? So maybe one argument that Harper Lee is making, because she wants to understand maybe the causes of racism and the way that you overcome racism, right? So perhaps one way of overcoming racism is to be educated, to earn more money, get more access to economic resources, and use your intelligence rather than physical violence to resolve conflict. And that will make you less likely to be racist, right? On the other hand, right, if we look at the Yules, they're poorly educated, consequently they don't have access to economic resources, and they're prone to use physical violence to solve conflict, right? So, how do we know that they're more likely to be racist, right? How do we know that? Who's the character in the book who's black that they interact with, and which clearly demonstrates that they're racist? Tom Robbins, right? So again, if we just look at this one theme of racism, I think what we see is that we see Harper Lee describing the circumstances that lead someone to be racist, right? It's more likely if you have this set of characteristics that you'll be racist, right? And that if you have these set of characteristics, you are less likely to be racist, right? It's not, nothing is absolute. It doesn't mean because you're poor and you're poorly educated and that you're violent that you will absolutely be a racist, right? But it seems a strong likelihood, right, that if you possess those characteristics that you will be racist. Just like, just because you're educated, middle class, and intelligent, it doesn't mean that you absolutely won't be a racist. It just means that you're less likely to be racist, right? I think this is something that Harper Lee wants for readers to understand.